Welcome back. Welcome to another edition of Nain Shorts. We continue the journey of martial arts training, and it's a lot of fun, especially when you get to cross train and go to different seminars. This weekend, I was very humbled. I was invited by Conrad Bowie and Patrick of Tiga Tactics to their knife and gun defense seminar, which was an awesome time. It really is. I'm still sore, and I'll get to the reason behind that. Not only do they warm you up physically, they also add a lot of knowledge that goes with what they teach. So they've done the research, they've looked at footage, they've studied statistics, they've looked at the national averages and all these other things to compile a bunch of information in very digestible forms where it's incredibly practical. And it doesn't matter what system you practice on your own, this information is just great for self-preservation and being able to stay safe in the real world. Because as many of you know, once you're outside of the dojo, it's a whole different animal. So thank you very much to Tiga Tactics. If you guys haven't been to one of their seminars, please look out for them. You can find them on Instagram, Facebook, I believe. Tiga Tactics, they have their own website. So it's just Tiga Tactics, Tiga, and if you don't know how to spell tactics, Google it. But great information, awesome people, and they have years of knowledge under them and different systems. But getting to the reason why I'm sore, not only did we warm up physically, we always partner up and work the exercises. Not only do we start off static, but we start adding a bit of dynamics to it, where now it's a non-compliant individual who you're practicing these things with. First of all, gun defense in itself is scary as hell. And they'll be the first to tell you that at a certain distance, it really doesn't matter how fast your hands are, you're not going to get there in time. So it really is under a very specific circumstance where somebody is close enough for you to do something, and you really have no other option. As they said in the seminar, they're only teaching you the tools. How you use them and when you use them, that is completely up to your discretion. So there's a lot to be said about the other aspects of training that really make a difference in the world once you're outside of the classroom. And one of those things is, do you have that tenacity? Do you have that I'm going home to my family tonight, I am going to survive mentality? Because it becomes very apparent when your training partner is 6'4" and 225 pounds. Sorry if I got that wrong, but he's a much bigger dude than I am. I'm 5'5" by comparison and 170. So there's a big difference in both size and strength. So trying to be the aggressor, pointing a gun at this individual, there's not a lot of fighting I can do on my end as the attacker. But as the person defending against, there's a lot more things to consider than just what was shown in front of me. And it was a very simple idea of gaining control as much of the gun as you possibly can, and being sure that with whatever free hand away from the barrel, as you're pointing it away from you, you're attacking as much as possible with that individual and eventually releasing the gun. Now that was the exercise itself. But when I'm trying to wrestle a gun out of the hands of somebody that size, even though their finger wasn't in the trigger guard, it wasn't as easy or as simple as going through the moves. So it made me realize, as we're training...
What do you mean, Nain?
Really? You're just going to throw a gun at me? No. Is that how you pass things? All right, so somebody's pointing a gun at you. Whatever, whether it's center, whether above, whatever the case may be, somebody's pointing a gun at you. First of all, are they even close enough for you to reach the gun? Because if they're even further away, attempting that, you'll probably just get shot if they're intended to do so. So again, the circumstances of being able to do this, the gun has to be close enough for you to actually touch it. And then being able to hold on to the actual barrel and the back end of it. And really, there is no specific way of doing it as much as as much real estate as you can get on this gun, hold on and hold on to dear life. But that's where a bit of caveat, because most people want to hold on as tight as possible. Other people want to push away. If you're pushing away, now you're at your weakest, and it's very easy for them to pull away. If you're too close, you run the risk of pointing the gun at you, and if it fires, which it most likely will at this point, you're going to get shot. So being fully aware of where you're pointing that barrel becomes incredibly important. So once you commit to that side, hopefully it's the side closest to your shoulder that you can push that barrel away, up, or even to your left, depending on the proximity of that gun and where that barrel is pointed at. And even that, probably not nice to do to a camera, but it's rubber, so it's kind of okay right now, because, you know, I really want to shoot Rick sometimes, but I don't. Because he likes throwing guns at people. So that's just understanding the gun itself, and where are the different points, where's the dangerous part, what are the things that can happen in reference to the mechanics of the gun. So they even discussed that idea. But again, the difference in size made me realize that there's more to consider than just the moves that were taught to me. Because all of a sudden I'm faced with someone that's a lot stronger, and if they truly struggled, which at the end of the class they really were, trying to pull away as we were going through the exercise, it became apparent that I might not have the time to actually hit this person or create enough damage where it would release the gun or help me get into a place where I can then use my body weight to turn on the wrist, take the gun away, and do the clearing and all that goes along with it, which I'm not too familiar with, but it was fairly simple to pick up. The point I'm trying to make is that once you get a lesson in hand, once you're proficient at doing it in class, how committed are you to making that work? Now, I just pause there for a moment, simply because how to get it to work for you, the individual, in conditions that are unfavorable to you. Say, example, against somebody who's not in your school, against somebody who isn't compliant, who isn't there to learn along with you and has no malicious intent towards you, someone who's truly committed to causing you harm and is willing to fight for that opportunity. Those circumstances alone change drastically how well or how poorly the things that you have learned will be effective or not effective. Not to mention the size of the individual, or whether or not he has friends. Some of the scenarios that they showed us of actual CCTV footage, there was more than one attacker with guns. And despite the statistics being in your favor, that a lot of these individuals do not go to the range and have very poor accuracy, and they themselves are probably in a heightened state, so that diminishes even more. And according to the FBI, 80% of the time you're probably going to survive. Sure, you'll have a gunshot, but life won't be in danger. But there's still that other 20% where there are many people who do die, and unfortunately it's not because somebody was walking up to them pointing a gun in their face. Whole different circumstances altogether. So again, how far are you willing, how committed are you to making these techniques, these tools, work in your favor? And what I found is that one of the easiest things to do, or one of the first things that came to mind, is to question, how the hell am I going to do this when this guy is so much bigger than me? So I had to think around that concept. I started using ideas that I've learned in joint locking and breaking the wrist to be able to use the leverage of the gun itself to bring that individual lower. I had to do it in order for me to even think about getting any proper strikes before I could disarm the individual. Again, based on the drill itself. Eventually, between me and this individual, we got to the point where we realized if you can get your hands on it against somebody much bigger and you have good control, it would make more sense for me to strip the gun at that point and then use it against that person. And we tried it, and it worked, despite him not being as compliant as he was at the beginning of the class, because now we're actually talking shop and discussing. but we had to break away from the actual exercise itself and start questioning beyond what we were doing. With somebody around my size, yeah, a lot of that stuff is feasible because they're within my arm's reach. I can punch them because we're about that height. But when that drastically changes, it's a whole different game. And you have to think beyond the ideas that were being presented to you or the techniques that you happen to learn. As good as you are at the techniques in your classroom, would they truly work outside of that? With somebody that isn't the same size as you, who is much bigger than you? For many of you, the answer is yes. So where do you go from that? Well, have you pressure tested it? Have you gone against somebody who's truly non-compliant to the things that you are doing? And I don't mean just sparring. I really mean scenario training where the person isn't just giving you what you need to accomplish your technique, where they are going to fight, where it's more of a simulated situation than it is sparring. Sparring is great. It's a great teaching tool, but it is two people just figuring stuff out, timing, that sort of thing. And there isn't as much in the sense of danger. That alone, too, is another aspect that we could explore even further. Can we mentally put ourselves in a situation, just in our minds, where we truly feel that we are in danger, that we feel that adrenaline rush, that our heart is pumping? And if we can't, are there ways that we can exercise that so our heart and our body physiologically feels like it's in danger, that we are in that heightened state? Can you then make all those very finite movements work for you? And if you can't, what needs to be augmented so it does become possible to use them in that state? There's a lot to be said about how the body reacts to fear and just horrible situations and whether or not we're even equipped to do so. And those are the things that started running through my head as I went through this training class, which again, thank you very much, Tiga Tactics. And it enlightened me in ways that I did not really understand until I thought about it further and, of course, conferred with my instructor about these things that went by. Folks, I honestly do believe that it is within our own interest as individual practitioners to question what we know and to really push the envelope of how far we can take that knowledge. Because if we don't, we might find ourselves within that 20% where it isn't a survival situation, where we aren't going to make it because we didn't take the time to prepare ourselves, whether it was mentally or whether it was to push the boundaries of what we know and understand and then practice it. So hopefully, if we find ourselves in that situation, we can jump back to that 80% where we will survive or are more likely to survive. There are no guarantees, nothing is 100%, and we can't train for every possible situation. But we can hone ourselves to be as sharp as we possibly can, not just physically, because folks, exercise, it really does make a difference. So if you're not doing it, definitely get on it. Rico, I'm looking at you like right in your eyes, bro.
Can I kick your ass or what?
Yeah, you can still kick my ass. You know what? The second part of that is your mental sharpness. Is your mentality there? Is your mindset ready for that? Are you prepared for it to hurt like hell, but you're still alive? If you're not, we need more training. And how you go about doing that, there are so many different ways. We would love to hear about how you guys go about and pressure testing things so it feels as real as possible while still maintaining safety. Helmets and gloves are great, but ultimately probably not going to have them. So are there ways you can do that with minimal safety equipment, still be safe so you're not getting sued or quit your class because something broke, but you get as close to the real thing as possible safely and still get what you need from it so you can be mentally prepared for what's out there or what could possibly be, which is what martial arts is. Train for the worst case scenario and hope for the best. So share with us. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, all that. And I'll see you on the next one. Till then, 3, 2, 1, cut! Sean Whitman.